All right, welcome to the Checkpoint. My name is Darren Bartlett, and today we are going to look at something of interest, especially to you, the skilled people who want to get into manufacturing, farming, and so much more out there. But the biggest question is that as you do or produce those products, where do you sell them? Of course, the local market, but also we want to expand our markets and go in the foreign markets. You very well know that we have the common market in East Africa. We have pacts that we've signed with different countries like DRC and many more others here. But the question that many of you have asked us, especially on our WhatsApp number, in the different editions that we've had on our business shows and also and other episodes of Checkpoint, you've asked the question of how come that when we go to these countries, we don't find our products on the shelves? Well, with me, I have the special advisor to the president. His name is Odrek Rwabogo, who is going to be, taking us through some of these questions that we've been asking. And he has the answers and probably some solutions that we can pick up and then, run away with them. Good evening, Mr. Rwabogo.
Good evening, and nice to be here.
How are you doing today?
Very good.
Wow, I love your suit. That's sharp.
Thank you.
Right there. But anyway, diving into the questions, Mr. Rwabogo, we've seen Ugandans' ability to produce and manufacture quite a number of things on the market here. But the question, and I'll carry it right from our audiences, they say when they travel, they still don't find our products on the shelves when they go to foreign markets. What is the problem? Where is the problem that we cannot actually find? What causes this kind of issue?
I think let me just give you some context for the start. To export a product is almost similar to overtaking a 30-ton truck on a bend with a small car. You don't see very well, but you can't keep behind this truck for a whole day. Okay. Because the front truck keeps zigzagging and denying you access. But you have to make a decision with the raw material you have to overtake. Very many countries don't really have a way to overtake the big truck. The big truck, in this analogy, being countries that have saturated those markets, and they don't want the smaller ones to come in. Why? Just a little bit of context. For you, if I keep that imagery, to do that overtaking, which is a huge undertaking, you need a national collective mindset that this is important, that this is a priority. If you have people who think selling in Brussels is like picking mangoes from Masaka and bring them to Nakasero market, they are not going to care about any standard or any chemicals they use, and they do not know that the actions they are taking here have deep vibration on the global market. Because even if you take those mangoes there, people have picked what you do in your markets. So you have to fight hard to bring this understanding to all producers, to all regulators, to all government, because these are not things you wake up and find on the breakfast table of leaders. Yeah. You have to bring that understanding and make it as important as the defense of a country. Because if you wake up and the country has no army or has no police, I think we'd all be concerned. But if we wake up and we're not very worried about the chili container, chilies, red pepper chilies, which we send to Brussels, a container is taken, you find a lot of trouble. If it's not aflatoxins, it is chemicals. If it's not chemicals, it's pests. And there is an interception on that market. And the interception means that you, the exporter, you destroy that container at your cost, yet you have a bank loan. These are not things people are thinking about when they wake up. My work, when the president tapped me last July, because I've never looked for a job. Yeah. I am a farmer, I sell milk. But when he said, can't you help? I said, sir, to help, for me this is the compelling area, because it improves our balance sheet, it creates jobs for young people. So what we've been doing is about three things to answer your question on why we are not there. Yeah. There are internal processes we've ignored for a long time. You have, for example, the question of laws. We have about 8 laws. I don't have time to take you through. Let me mention 3. Yep. The food safety law, which is an amalgamation of what Ministry of Health does and what Ministry of Agriculture does, because food safety at a disease level is Ministry of Health. But food safety at agriculture level is chemicals that go into that product. We have a food safety law that is 1964. I was not born in 1964. It hasn't been amended for this long. But the world, our trading partners have moved on. So you must amend that law, modernize it to bring it to East Africa, COMESA, and then be credible so that you rebuild trust with your trading partners in order that they can now allow you on their supermarket shelves and say, Uganda is good, they should take this space. Okay. We have another law called Plant and Crop Protection. I think it's a 2016 law, but you know, viruses, bacteria. We didn't have coronavirus 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Yeah. Bacteria, viruses, maximum residue levels change every day. And if the West wants to keep you off its shelf, they'll, for example, say, but you have flies around Lake Victoria. You have the Asian fly of the mango, which you have not dealt with. When you deal with the Asian fly, they say, but there is a lake fly. I say, but a lake fly, but there's also house flies. So if you have people who are not set to respond to these non-technical trade barriers using the law, you suffer. So part of those, that's my number one, part of the issues we face are the laws and infrastructure to really enforce particular standards. Number two, I don't know any country that has grown its exports without an export credit fund. Because if I take my food to South Sudan or Congo, and I have not de-risked politically, security-wise, what happens to the goods, I have nowhere to go. I don't have insurance. I cannot borrow at 25% interest rates. So we're working on combining 4 institutions, the trade associations, the Grain Traders Association, the Fruit and Vegetable Exporters Association, into one arm, and we say, make a contribution. Make some 10%, because you need to export these things to Europe and other places. We are going to government and say, all the money you're borrowing, pick out some money and really put it in this fund so that I can de-risk 40% of the invoice I get to export. And then we think if you have these 2 arms, you can now go to the third arm called external funds that want to invest here. Afrexim Bank has money for exports, but where do they put it? Bank of Uganda, Stanbic, they must find a fund where they participate so that they can improve trade. When you achieve those 3, there'll be private equity funds wanting to invest in that fund. If it has good governance issues, if it has an act of parliament. If you deal with those 2, I don't want to take more time, those 2...
No, you have a lot of time.
Good.
Yeah.
So those 2 would significantly push the targets we have set with the president for the next 5 years. The third one is we're always building border infrastructure. One-stop border post, one-stop customs, warehouses in Pondwe. But we've never sat down to say, this infrastructure you build in Pondwe, in Bunagana, in Goli, it's actually not yours. It is for the Congolese who need to come and pick goods from here with ease. So why are you constructing them, borrowing more money to expand that capacity without consulting them? So that you find, probably instead of having a warehouse in Mpondwe, have it in Beni. Because Beni, you will have your cooking oil, you'll have your sugar exports, because 60–70% of our exports to Congo is all in the east. So we are thinking, let's have a genuine conversation about this infrastructure as government of Uganda, government of Congo, but mark this, bring in the private sector, because it is the firm, FIRM, that pays taxes, that borrows money from the bank, that gets invoices from customers. Involve them on both sides so that the 2 start speaking, government can pull back because the vehicle will have started moving. We think those are basic efficiencies. You have efficiencies mean that you have a car, you are not driving it, you could put it out on the market and earn some money. So we have infrastructure not fully used. We have laws not fixed. We have money circulating in many things for consumption, but no export credit fund. Once you create those efficiencies, The next strategic level, I call it a strategic offensive to enter markets, you need market research. Let me just give you one statistic.
Okay.
When we were locked down in 2020, Britain alone, Britain, which is giving us money under UK Export Fund for infrastructure here, under lockdown, they consumed $780 million worth of vegetables, frozen vegetables. What did Uganda make? I think it's less than $20 or $30 million. Mm-hmm. That market of UK is also the Commonwealth market. They speak the same language. We've been in Rwanda. The countries are speaking trade, climate change. But really, the point is, these markets, you don't enter them without market research. What are the tastes and preferences of the people of Wales? It is different from the Scottish people. It is different from the English in London. For example, if people like snacking is a new fad. Yeah. I don't want to have lunch, but I want to eat a dehydrated mango, a dried fruit, dried orange. The market for dried fruits is $9.4 billion. Britain is consuming 20% of that. The US, 34% of that. We're struggling to get meat, our meat from animals, with its bones and blood, and then there's a whole lot of issues you face. But if you dry the meat and you make biltong, they call it biltong in South Africa, we call it omukaro in Uganda. If you take 50 grams of dried meat, it's 1.5 pounds in the UK. Who knows this information? Because there's no market research. We only just get on the aircrafts and have these seminars and talk and come back. The real work has to be done here so that we enter these markets with a plan. The second, so I told you first three things which are efficiencies. The three things now I'm speaking about are strategic offensive structures we want to use, so market research. The second one, there are people on these developed markets called buyers. You don't wake up and take your coffee to Sainsbury or Waitrose or Starbucks. No. There are people who know who buys what in Starbucks. How much is from Colombia? How much is from Uganda? How many of those does Uganda speak to? I don't know. So we have to find trade representatives who go into these large supermarket chains, Costco, Trader Joe. These are large retail outlets in the US. And say, but this shelf space has Colombia, it has even Kenya, where is Uganda? If you give me this little shelf space, I can go back and get you the coffee, the dried fruits, and many other things, the honey, all the things that we're producing but with limited market. That trade representative will inform our companies what that market requires. So you combine it with fixing our laws, so that the Food and Drug Administration in the US has no question on us. That's how you get into those markets. Number three, as an offensive strategy, which I see, is that we got to deal with the question of conversations at home in Uganda about our food and our behavior. When we post pictures of meat by the roadside with flies, and we say, wow, I enjoy this, it goes online. You know that the international media security agencies in the US now use social media to understand who this person is. So if they follow 100 of those tweets about Uganda, Uganda has a problem with meat on the roadside. So it doesn't matter how you dress nicely, your meat is not yet ready to get into us on our plates. So the conversations we have here need to be informed by some sort of nationalistic thinking. I don't like you, just as an example, I'm just hypothetically, I don't like you, but I know that we have to sell. So if we have to sell, there are things we have to deal with quietly. So we have to speak, Minister of Local Government, because you enforce in Kampala, you go to Masaka, it's another government. You go to Mbarara, it's another government. So you have to speak jointly with the system to ensure that there is a sense of responsibility, what we speak about, what we post, so that our media, of course, you report politics, you report everything, and that's okay. But there has to be this thinking that my reporting on economy should be informed by what people take from here so that I can have more jobs in Masaka based on the pineapples the Masaka people are selling. To do that, we must have local conversations and external ones. So the external conversations about Uganda are human rights, politics, but where is space for trade? Where is space for companies in poultry? We have a poultry target, poultry, both the meat and the eggs, of $350 million by 2028. How are we going to get that figure if we cannot deal with that bandwidth of the Europeans or the Congolese about Ugandan poultry and focus on it strong enough for people to start to make orders? So, on one side, in-house work to do. You avoid it, you delay it, you are just causing yourself problems, you will not be on those shelves. On the external, we got to go into something when we fully studied it and we take proactive strategies to achieve increased exports.
Well, quite some rich information that I'm even learning from you right now. And I'm wondering, how does a common man who contributes to this, bigger picture that we are looking at in 2028? For example, there's I know of a statistic that says that Uganda has the sweetest pineapples, and some lucky people are able to take it to Saudi Arabia, but not everyone is aware of this kind of information. How do we mobilize people on the ground who contribute to this whole chain that then eventually gives us the result that we want in terms of export?
See, my brother, the common person, my father was a peasant. I'm the first one to go to university, first to start a business, first to get into another social class. But behind me, I have my father's friends and community that has been in sedentary peasantry. Only in the last 15, 20 years have we had primary and secondary free education, so we get people speaking English and getting some exposure. So for you to rely on that peasant to do the things I'm talking about is really not very smart. Nothing wrong to do with the peasant, but I want to deal with the elite of our country. Because when I come out of that situation, what do I do for those peasants? I must create a strong poultry association, which says, I know about chickens or about eggs. I am asking you as a peasant, if you supply me this standard and I can check your farm, there'll be a 20% increase on your price. You force me by a price incentive to change. But no matter how many things you tell me about soya, eggplants that have been stopped, we have between September, for example, and May, September of last year and May this year, we had about 20 interceptions of chilies, eggplants. And what are they stopping us? Why? They find disease agents, and we don't explain. Where are these coming from? The peasants, however where they've grown, what they've grown, it has been transported poorly. So if, for example, you get a truck that carries manure, you put meat. So you are transferring pathogens straight away from what is supposed to be feed to what is supposed to be consumed by a human being. You get to Entebbe Airport, there are limited checks. They are more interested in taxes, but the infrastructure to check what's going out, not so much. So it is us, the educated people of Uganda who own businesses, who are in government as permanent secretaries, as commissioners, to say, no, time up. If we do not have a combined approach to things called trade associations, the poultry people have an association, we should help it to function according to international rules. We should have the sugar people who hold 200,000 metric tons unsold. We should find a way to get them understood by the sugar buyers in Congo. We should do the same for beef, for dairy. Once you do that, there is a way the world will see you. They see organized trading. They see organized production. They see where to go and get information, and then they can make orders. Let me give you one little sad example. I use these examples to wake people up. So it's about 2005. 2005 is 17 years ago. A smart Ugandan has carried plantain, chips made out of plantain, gonja. He goes to San Francisco. He has a bit in his bag. They are poorly, of course, packaged. So he finds someone in Trader Joe and says, test. What if, no, let's take it to the lab. They take it to the lab, they check, they test. The test is superb. They said, where are you from? He said, I'm from Uganda. Where's Uganda? Remember, you have had no significant publicity other than Joseph Kony.
And Idi Amin.
And Idi Amin.
Yeah.
Oh, Uganda is in the tropics. So are you sure you can supply this to us consistently? He says, yes. Are you sure we can give you an order? Yes. Of course, the gentleman, I won't mention the name, goes away. And then Trader Joe calls the Colombians. He said, we're not sure the source, but the recipe is good. Can you try this? The Colombians go and get plantain chips in 2 months. And there's no Ugandan plantain chips in Trader Joe. So even when we start things, somehow we lose them because of lack of coordination, lack of trust of our systems. So for me, I don't sleep. I think of all these things. I don't know, why are people spending time in politics, in politicking? Yet these are the real issues that help a country change. I can tell you, a farm, FARM, that exports beef and milk is a different kind of structure. Its management and skill will change. Its behaviors and how they use technology will change. And it will begin to impact people around there and move them up faster than if you gave them cash for politics or whatever it is. So for me, these things bother me. And that's why I want to use you as the media, as a channel, to say, can we not have a genuine conversation about this thing that affects all of us? If we don't export much, but we import more and even consume more, how are we going to really immunize ourselves against trading practices of our neighbors who are improving their production, who are improving their standards? We are opening the market. We remove the hinges because we like East Africa. We like Africa. We remove everything, the door, the hinges. We are flooded, but we can't respond. That, for me, is the strategic challenge of our generation. If we can't fix it, we will not create wealth for young people.
Well, I can see the pain that you have as an individual trying to push the agenda of that we should export more and import less and work something around our balance of trade. But not so long ago, we've had issues with also some of these foreign countries in terms of banned eggs, you cannot bring your milk here, and all these kind of things. Even when we have protocols that have been signed to allow us to go into these common markets and put our products on the shelves. Now, when that comes out, some people who probably the elites would say, maybe I would enter trade and export eggs and things, but they are not even allowed to be exported. There's that challenge on the foreign side of it. Probably discourages some of us. Is there an initiative to see that they correct and implement the protocols as they should be and allow the Ugandan products, even those that don't need a lot of value chain addition to them? Things like eggs, wash them, pack them well, and take them. But unfortunately, you can't cross the border with them.
I think everything begins with understanding. Why do you think our neighbors do that? They are protecting their market with one hand while opening with another. Yeah. Let me very quickly tell you, economies grow through 4 or 5 stages. You start with agriculture. The economies I've read about, at least, that we try to emulate. You start with agriculture, but you process. You try and build a mindset that nothing should leave the country without processing. So you make processing of vegetables, of fruits, of milk, you make it as pervasive as your politics. See how politics is so pervasive? I keep talking about it, politicking. You make it the same, that now we know as Uganda, nothing should leave our borders without processing. But when you move up a ladder, when you process, there'll be other people in their countries who are doing the same. They want to protect their markets. Last weekend, I was in a supermarket in South Sudan. I see 40% of the shelves are Ugandan, but there are better packaged products from Saudi Arabia, from Kenya, meaning that if we don't move a notch higher, for example, to go into pharmacology, into the pathogen industry, we will lose our competitive advantage. That's stage 2. Stage 3, if you reach that plateau, you must move the economy to chemicals, heavy chemicals for industry and for consumer goods. You must start to process your steel so that now agriculture is no longer a huge thing, but it has linkages. When you are embedded there, you must have the mind to move on to something else. It is called automation. So you go into vehicles, you go into, and the things I'm describing to you, you don't do one and stop and go and do it. It's working, but you lack the strategy to compare particular aspects to work very well. By the time people catch up with you on electronics, you are now in heavy medical machines. The scanners, when they bring a CT scan in Mulago, you see publicity. But you brought a machine, it's someone's knowledge. It's very expensive. So, robots. So countries that began with agriculture have left us, they are far. When you see our neighbors protecting their markets, they are very worried about you pushing them out of level 1 when they are not yet ready for level 2. So you should be smart by ensuring that you have good negotiators who understand WTO rules, who can read a Riot Act on ESC. But also you have producers who are clean, smart, traceable. You know, when you meet our people going to WTO, it's like 1 or 2 people, maybe a minister, the permanent secretary. But if you go to the neighborhood, they go with lawyers, they go with PR people, they go with scientists. It's a team of 20. They are going to war because they must protect their productive capabilities and improve them. So let's not blame our neighbors before we fix our house. How much you do internally determines how much you get outside. Short of that, they'll keep bringing excuses. Oh, Uganda has a lot of milk now. They must have imported it from Congo. No, Uganda has more milk because we have increased the production, but we don't have people to explain and make strategic demands that force you to take our product. Or we are not very well packed and packaged, and we are not very good, we are not attractive to the consumer's eye, so we keep losing money.
All right, thank you so much, Odrek. We're still watching the checkpoint here and looking at the question of export. How do we improve our exports out there and add more of our products on the shelves in the foreign market? I just want us to take a short break, and then in return, we'll go to the solutions. How practical are they, and when actually do we start actually implementing these, some of these solutions? Let's take a break.